All right, so today is day one of Book of Proverbs. For the month of December, I'm going to be sharing one chapter of Book of Proverbs a day. And the Book of Proverbs was a book that was written by King Solomon. He was king of Israel. He was the son of King David. And when he became a king, he didn't ask God for power or for money. He asked God for wisdom. And through that wisdom, he became very powerful and very rich. And I like to break down the chapter 1 into 3 parts. The part number 1 being verse 1 through 7, where it lays out this foundation of how we should live life essentially. And on verse 2, it says the purpose of these proverbs is to teach people wisdom and discipline, to help them understand the insights of the wise. So there is knowledge and there's wisdom. Two separate things. Knowledge is everything that we know. But then what do we do with that knowledge? Could be used for evil and could also be used for good and to follow God's heart. And wisdom is to putting all of these knowledge towards what God is calling us to do. And it gives us this very important key of how we should live our life, which is on verse 7, where it says, fear of the Lord is the foundation of true knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and discipline. And fear of the Lord is not like being scared of God, but to have this desire to follow God and to put him in the center of everything that we do, and to just this reverent way of just pleasing the Lord in everything that we do. And on the second portion, it's basically a warning, which goes from like verse 8 through 19. And it gives us a few things that we should follow. And number 1 being, listen when your father corrects you. Number 2, do not neglect your mother's instructions. And number 3, on verse 10, it says something that I find very important, which it says, my child, if sinners entice you, turn your back on them. So it's giving us 2 warnings. Number 1, that sin is enticing, and 2, that we should stay away from it. And it understands that sin, it often shows up as this very attractive thing and very easy and full of promises and, wrapped in the golden ribbon or whatever you want to call it, but it's very enticing, but it's telling us very clearly to stay away. And it gives us a few examples of things that we should stay away from it, their sin. But on verse 15, it says, my child, don't go along with them. Stay far away from their path. And it's warning us again to stay far away from the path of sin. And on verse 19, it warns us about greedy towards money by saying, such is the faith of all who are greedy for money. It robs them of life. Money is not a bad thing. But if money becomes the center of your life, it becomes a god to you. It becomes, or you use money for evil, or how you place money in your life as a priority, it can become a problem. And it's warning us of this. So it warns us of these very important things. On the third part, which it goes from verse 28 through 33, it gives us this promise. And it talks to us also about the consequences of the previous verses. We can choose what we want to do. We have free will to make our choices. However, we cannot choose the consequences of how things end up. So if you decide to kill someone, that's your choice. There are consequences, and you cannot choose the consequences. And it starts this portion of verse 20 by saying, wisdom shouts in the streets. She cries out in the public square. Verse 21, she calls the crowds along the main street to those gathered in front of the city gate. It places wisdom as a person. It personifies wisdom as not like a physical person, but as a divine person, essentially. And from verse 24 all the way through 31st, it tells us that what the promise is if we ignore what God is calling us to do. So verse 24 would be like, I called you so often, but you wouldn't come. I reached out to you, but you paid no attention. You ignore my advice and rejected the correction I offer. So I will laugh when you are in trouble. I'll mock you when disaster overtakes you. When calamity overtakes you like a storm, when disaster engulfs you like a cyclone, and anguish and distress overwhelm you. So it's like when everything is falling apart and you're feeling the consequences of your choices because you chose to ignore God, because you chose to not fear the Lord, God is saying, when you crying for help, I will not answer. He says that on the 28th, though they anxiously search for me, they will not find me. That's the second part of verse 28. It ends chapter 1 by saying, of promise to those who listen to God. But all who listen to me will live in peace, untroubled by fear of harm. So, chapter 1 lays out the foundation for how we should be living life and how we should be listening and studying through the Proverbs. So, being wise, disciplined, fearing the Lord, staying away from sin, listening to our parents and following what they say, and not being greedy about money, and choosing to listen to God versus ignoring and acting by impulse or just ignoring instruction or just doing whatever we want.